What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You guys, the War Report, we are here to talk a little bit about the playoff expansion. Your man Ike Jones here, joined with B. Will and Mike G. Recently, the playoff committee convened in 2024, 12 teams. 12 teams in 2024. Now, we talked about this a little bit, maybe about a year ago when this first started popping up in the news. And now we've got confirmation that we are indeed going to 12 teams. And just want to get some quick reactions. I see a lot of you guys in here commenting. Just so you know, special live today. We know the game is tomorrow, so we're probably not going to talk too much about the game right now. We're going to go live tomorrow before the game to talk about Mercer. Today, we're talking playoff expansion. I will start with you, B. Will. How are you feeling about what's going on? Oh, man. Big smile. B. Will, what's up, man? Talk to us.
I'm feeling fantastic. Okay. If for no other reason than the arguments against the 12-team playoff really didn't make any sense. They never made any sense to me. I know some people in the chat may have some. Be glad for us to all talk about it. But yes, it's money. Absolutely, it's money. But everything else is money as well. Bowl games are really money grabs, honestly, and those had gotten dull. Everybody's cool with 30 very mediocre, mostly bowl games being played. So what do you have against the playoff that's extended if you've got all these garbage bowl games? If anybody was in favor of no postseason, except for games that are played for championships, that would make more sense to me than being against the 12-team playoff, but saying, hey, I like bowl games and want to see it. I don't understand how you like one and not the other. So we can get into all the other reasons later. But yeah, I'm excited.
All right. Be Will excited about it. Mike G, how you feeling? 12-team playoff.
Listen, Josh Pate has been screaming all over Twitter for the last that this is bad for college football and that you're only going to strengthen the cases of the Ohio States and the Bamas and those people out there. I don't wholly disagree with him, but I'll tell you this. If you're the ACC or the PAC, you played yourself. You played yourself by not getting on board with this earlier. And then watch what this does to the rest of the conference realignment. Notre Dame, they're running for a damn conference now. I promise you they're running for a conference. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame is running for a conference because here's the deal. In these super conferences where you've got 16 SEC teams and like 24 Big 10 teams or whatever, they're like the Big 30 now. Yeah. It's going to be, what incentive do I have to schedule Notre Dame? Because I'm probably picking up an extra conference game. The Big 10 is already in a 9-conference game model, I think.
Right. They are.
Right? So now teams are going to put a bigger emphasis on staying healthy and finishing with a record that will qualify to back you into the playoffs if you're not an automatic qualifier as a conference winner. That's what's going to happen here. So Notre Dame's going to have to join a conference. Because if I'm Ohio State or one of these schools that plays Notre Dame every year, if I'm already in the Big or the SEC, I'm not scheduling you. What would I schedule you for? You need me. I don't need you.
Yeah.
So the prestige of Notre Dame, like people saying, oh, Notre Dame's going to make it every year. I'm like, yeah. As soon as they join the Big 10, sure. But let's see how easy it is for them to make it when they have to play a conference schedule just like everybody else and go through the rigors of playing the same schools over and over again. And those schools learning your tendencies. And man, I'm just telling you, I think this is going to have a huge impact, like, on the next year. 2024 is when it starts.
Yeah, 2024. Yeah.
I thought it said 2026 was possible with possible implementation by 26.
I thought it was the 2024. Is it the 2024?
It says as soon as 2024.
So. Okay. All right. So listen, that means we got 2 years left in the current model if they do that. 2 years.
Yeah, we'll have
at the earliest
this season and next season, and that's it.
Yep.
Right, and then they're moving to this thing. So there's going to be a mad dash for shelter. The hurricane that is the college football expanded playoff is coming, and you need to find a hurricane shelter called the SEC or the Big 10 or whatever the hell the ACC PAC thing they're going to put together to try to save themselves from themselves. Man, they played themselves.
They did.
They played themselves.
They did.
Yeah, they played themselves hard. So,
all right, so let me get a reaction from C-Dub here. Then we're gonna go to the comments, see how you feeling about this, and I'll read a little bit about what they put out as far as things that they've approved for this in just a minute. But see, let me just get your instant reaction to a 12-team playoff.
I mean, we was heading this direction. I'm not real surprised, but I think this is why the Big Ten and the SEC were jockeying and getting in position for this. And you need it because on our own conference alone, we're going to cannibalize each other. And so it's why Greg Sankey really pushed for this. I echo a lot of what Mike's sentiments is that if you're a school like Notre Dame, why schedule you if I'm in one of these conferences and my schedule? If you're a school like Auburn, you already know what it means to have one of the toughest schedules in college football.
Yeah.
Other teams are going to follow suit now, like teams that used to be able to avoid the Bamas and Tennessees because they weren't rivals. Well, you may avoid them, but you got Oklahoma and LSU and A&M and these other schools on your schedule. You're not going to want to schedule out of conference. That used to be a big thing, especially first weekend of the college football season. You want to schedule an out of conference opponent. Those days may be going away as you're developing these super conferences. You're going to be playing a hard opponent just about every other week now. So I think this was coming. I'm not quite sure how I felt about 12 versus 8. I know a lot of people said they wanted 8. They wanted 12. I just wanted to not be 4, right? So I'm happy that it's not 4. And you do give other teams an opportunity to get in without an asterisk, like a Cincinnati last year, right? And so I like the expansion. I think it's pretty good. And I think I'm curious to see what happens with conference realignment because this kind of forces the hand of other conferences who kind of already trying to follow the SEC and Big Ten. I don't know what happens to the Big 12. I don't know where they go from here, but it's curious to see the dominoes that fall as a result of this.
That's where they go. They go away. All right, so we're going to get into some comments here. We got a lot of good comments flooding in. We'll start with our super chat. Appreciate the super chat here from Exclusive TV. Purdue made me so mad last night, but what I got from the game is that number 9 is PS best DB. Penn State's best DB, and Clifford is still overrated. Purdue didn't chew the clock. Definitely we'll get more into the Purdue and Penn State game at a later time, but yeah, understood. Listen, for what it's worth, I wanted Penn State to win this game because I want them to come to Auburn undefeated. So good job by them for coming back.
I will say it. I was
good job for Purdue. Good job for Purdue to say, you know what? Let's snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Why do we need this win?
I think Clifford is not getting enough credit for that touchdown drive he led at the end. I mean,
who is not giving him credit for that? He did an amazing job.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the reactions that I saw on Twitter were just, I mean, people were just kind of glossing over it. I was like, yo, that dude definitely hung in there. And I mean, he was tough. He played semi-hurt the whole game. And I don't know. I thought it was a gutsy performance by the 6-year senior, but, you know, I just don't think that's getting talked about enough. He did a great job over that last drive.
I don't know how you ignore what he did in that last drive. If anybody's not giving him credit for the last drive, then I don't know what to say for that because he did an amazing job in the last drive. All right, let's get into some more of these comments. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, this is the War Report Live talking about playoff expansion. We will start with some naysayers, namely my man Lawrence Robinson says, I am pissed at this expansion. This is the worst thing ever. He goes on to say, someone explained to me how it's a good idea that Auburn could potentially have to play Bama or UGA 3 times to win a national championship. This is whack. Any responses to Lawrence Robinson's concerns there?
Of course. So here's the deal. I think people are viewing this like, well, I got to play Bama. I got to play Georgia. Then I got to play Bama or Georgia. And then I got to play Bama or Georgia again. All of that is possible. What we're hoping and counting on is that Auburn is actually a very good team.
You're right.
Not the team in 2017 that was one running back away or couldn't beat a very good Georgia defense the second time around.
You because be worried about playing us twice, damn it.
Right. So when you aren't,
get your weight up. Get your weight up.
So instead of a game where you just had a very good called game at home against Georgia and you gamed them, right? You got them. Like it wasn't a trick. You just beat them. but it was a very good, well-called game. One of the times where Gus was in his element. All right. But it's hard to pull that twice. Number one, with the style of offense, and number two, against a team as talented and as well coached as the Georgia defense is. Doing that twice is difficult for that team. If we are the type of team we want to be, then they would be saying this exact same thing about us and not the other way around. We're not one running back deep. We've got 3 running backs that can go out there and be equally as productive. And so if one gets hurt, if we lose a Tank before the SEC championship game, then we got a Jarquez and a Damari and a Sean Jackson ready to be the battering ram to propel us into the playoff, into a national championship season. The difference here is that we are hoping we are not this team who has whisked and tripped into the playoff, because then I understand the fear. Then I understand the trepidation. Well, what do we have to beat them again? Then we beat them a fucking again.
Whoa. Yes,
that's what happened.
Whoa. Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
Everybody's so scared. What do we have to be? These are not unbeatable teams, man. These are not unbeatable teams. We have been so ill prepared to compete with the best teams in the country. We play 2 of them every year, so we know how ill prepared we have been to play against them. And everybody's so used to seeing that. Yes, if we're going to be that ill prepared, then I agree with everybody who's naysaying on Auburn's behalf, because then we're only good enough to beat them every now and then. So we got to kind of hope the cards fall right and that we get them at home. And if it's neutral side, what do we do? No, then we deserve to lose if we're not good enough to beat them anywhere on any field. That's what happens.
And you're not.
Turn up, be Will. Turn up, be Will.
yeah. Be you're a little. You're a little kind of monotone. Sorry. You need to liven up a little bit.
I'm parched.
This isn't what happened. I mean, didn't Bama and Georgia have to deal with this last year?
Yeah, but I think that's my point, though. Caesar is here's my thing, right? Regardless of how good a team is,
deal with
beating a team twice in one season is hard as hell anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just hard, let alone beating the top teams in the SEC. Right, like It is a tall tale to beat a well-coached team twice. Yeah. You know, I almost say the losing team has the advantage. Like, probably the best thing that could have happened to Georgia was they lost the SEC championship game, because there was no chance they were not going to make the playoff.
Right.
I mean, that's what it came down to, and they were prepared the second time for Bama defensively. Mm-hmm. I called that Bama would win that SEC championship game. I called that when I said, this feels like a Bama kind of game. But I was not confident that they were going to win it the second time around. I called Georgia in the national title game, and they won it, and convincingly at the end as well too. It was a good game for the most part. But those plays, it's hard to make those types of game-winning plays twice against a well-coached team. It just is. So hopefully, to B's point, with an F-bomb on top, we're the well-coached team that people don't want to see twice, rather than worrying about having to play those teams again. They need to be worried about having to play us.
Right.
Right. So in a 12-team model, though, check this out. In a 12-team model, a 9-win Auburn team has a chance to sneak in on the back end. And if you're Bama and you just squeaked by us in the Iron Bowl, like any of these years last year, you don't want to see that team again in the playoff. You don't.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to hang your head on the fact we beat you. See you 365 days.
Right.
But you definitely don't want to see Auburn again in a play on the back end of a playoff. So I don't know. You still have the advantage if you get the bye, because you're going to be well rested, and it's a lot of football. If you're going to, just like the NFL, if you're going to come from the back of the pack to win this thing, you're going to play a lot of football, and you're going to need a lot of luck, and you're going to need a lot of people to stay healthy.
Yeah. Right.
But still, I like the idea that somebody's going to get the shot to do that.
Right.
Certainly.
All right, well, let's take a look at some more of these comments, and then we'll get a little bit into the ruling that came out, or the things that came out. CMAC TV, appreciate you tuning in, says this is good news. Chris K jumps in. I think your understanding is incorrect. The top 4 teams get away round bye. So first round bye is what I think he's going for there. And then 5 through 12 teams have a bowl then semifinal. You won't play the top team multiple times. It would likely be a single elimination tournament.
Well, I think what Mike is saying is we're going to have to play him in the regular season. You're going to have to face.
Well, he was talking about Lawrence's statement that you're going to have to play Georgia and Bama possibly 3 times, right? So you play them in the regular season. You would play potentially Georgia again in a conference title game, and then potentially have to play them again in the playoff, right? You wouldn't see Bama 3 times. Bama would only be once or twice potentially, but that was Lawrence's point. Why are we making it more difficult for Auburn to get there? If we run the table during the regular season, we shouldn't have to go and face those teams again. But to be Will's point, if you're the team to beat, they should be saying that about you.
Let me ask you this. Depending on assuming that Georgia doesn't go undefeated until you beat them, right? If you beat them twice, would that hurt their chances of even getting into a playoff?
Like if you beat them regular season and SEC championship game?
Yeah, well, it depends on how good you are. Because if they lose twice and they've got 2 losses on the season,
do
that.
Right? They could still sneak in the 12th spot. That's why I thought 8 was a better number, because it prevents that. But get ready for the complaining from all the people when a third of this is SEC teams.
It's going to be like half of it. Once we get to the super conference, it will be like half.
It's going to be hard. I mean, I think you'll get 4 SEC teams in minimum.
It's going to be 8. It's going to be 8 Big Ten and SEC teams combined at least.
Right.
But for sure.
I guess my point is you're going to have the same complaint people have now. They're going to have in this format.
Right.
Which is why I thought 8 was a better number, because you at least could limit it some and then set rules to get other people into those spots. Now, I'm SEC, so I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about Auburn getting into a 12 spot and playing extra football.
Right.
What I don't want to hear is everybody else's bitching about why they didn't get in. Like, why did 8-4 Auburn get in? Well, they played the hardest, you know what I mean? Like, I think about how bad our season was from a national perspective last year, and they still logged a top 10 win.
Yeah.
This Auburn team still logged a couple of top 15 wins. So you're not telling me that a 9-win SEC team that doesn't make the SEC championship game is going to have a great shot of getting in somewhere between 10 and 12.
Right.
It's definitely possible. It's going to be interesting to see how they roll this out. Let's get back into these super chats though here. Nick Stemple, appreciate you. We got pressure on Penn. If we get pressure on Penn State's QB, it'll be a long day for them. They could not run the ball against an average Purdue defense, front at best. Great last drive, but zero pressure. You guys are hell bent on talking about this Penn State game, it seems. We will definitely get into that game more as it approaches. Mercer is next on the schedule, though, so we'll be talking about that a little bit more. But today we're talking college playoff expansion. See, did you have something you wanted to say on that last comment, though?
No, you good.
All right, so let's go in here and talk about playoff expansion. This is some of the rules that came out with the playoff expansion as listed from out of that meeting. The 12-team bracket, 6 highest-ranked conference champions. So if there are 6 conferences, I mean, so here, let's talk about number 1 here, plus the next 6 highest-ranked teams, right? So let's talk about number 1, the 6th highest-ranked conference champions, no minimum ranking requirement. So what are the conferences that they're outlining for this as the 6
all of them
champions?
All of them. So they aren't excluding group of 5. They will exclude group of 5, but similar to Cincinnati, it's as if Cincinnati won the AAC, they would be included. It'll be the Big 12 going forward. But looking at last season, if they won the AAC and they are ranked higher than, I don't know, whoever won the Pac-12, then but the Pac-12, I don't even know what they do on a year-to-year basis, but it allows the opportunity for the Power 5 plus 1. So more than likely, whoever the highest ranked group of 5 conference champion is, they get an automatic berth. Now, in years past, who might have been the UAB.
But is there a Power 5 still, right? Like, I mean, I understand that those conferences still exist, but do you consider those the most powerful 5 conferences still? I mean, it's the Big Ten, it's the SEC. Those other conferences are kind of The ACC exists and it still has Clemson over there, I guess.
Miami's on the up. They coming up.
Okay, maybe Miami, but like okay, so the ACC maybe sneaks into this conversation,
right?
But is the Pac-12 still? I mean, are they still a Power 5 conference? Like, let's be real. as they're currently constructed.
I mean, not after.
Do you consider them a Power 5 conference? You're on mute, Mike.
Yeah, that's why I think you see realignment over the next 2 years is going to go nuts again.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think that.
That furthers my point. As you get into realignment, will there be 5 big conferences and then 5 minor or group of 5 conferences
you probably
that
even
still exist?
Yeah. Let me. Can we pull that back up again?
Yeah. We're just going to go through them one by one. But 12-team bracket, 6 highest ranked conference champions. So what they're assuming here is of the conference champions that exist, whoever's the ranked highest. So like if all Power 5 are in the top 10 or whatever, and then maybe a group of 5 one is in the top 10. So we're going to take the 6th highest ranked ones.
So is that's one scenario, correct?
Right. So
but then it says plus 6 highest ranked teams. So that's supposed to be the construction of 12 is 6 conference champions and then the next 6 highest ranked teams, which to your point earlier, Mike, about a Notre Dame who isn't in a conference, they could still be highly ranked. And
that's how they're going to get in, because it's still those committees that favor a traditional Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is still
but to Mike's point, who's going to want to schedule Notre Dame now?
Yeah, I'm not scheduling them.
And they're going to be playing. They're going to get in literally every year. They're going to be playing group of 5 teams the whole time and a bunch of ACC teams at the bottom end of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or they're going to make it in as a low seed and have the hardest path to the
in this path. Notre Dame has no choice. The highest they could possibly be is 7th.
Right. that's
the highest Notre Dame could possibly be if they're going to do it. 6th conference champions and then the next 6 highest ranked. Even if Notre Dame is ranked number 2, they could not be a conference champion. The highest they could be ranked in this system is 7th.
If they put in a Notre Dame exception, I'm gonna lose my mind.
That kind of is the Notre Dame exception, isn't it?
No, I'm saying like if they
putting them in the top,
right? Yeah, but if Notre Dame is ranked 8th or higher, they bump out the lowest ranked.
How they would have to phrase it is any non-conference, anyone who isn't in a conference, because Notre Dame is the only team that's not in a conference, right? There are very few of them. I think there's like maybe 2 other notable ones. Is it BYU that isn't in the conference?
They're still
they're not.
But they're about to join the Big 12.
Yeah. So, so how they would phrase it likely is any independent if they're going to try to make some sort of quote unquote Notre Dame exception, which is what everybody's going to call it, right? Like it doesn't matter who these other indies are. They're going to call this the Notre Dame exception. If they do that, then that's going to be the only way that they get rated higher than 7th going into this conference realignment expansion. Number 2 here, ranking system. College Football Playoff Selection Committee will continue to determine the weekly rankings with criteria to be reevaluated. So the playoff committee is saying we're going to still do the same thing we've been doing as far as how the rankings are concerned. But the playoff committee is kind of tying their hands by rule 1 here and how they're going to be able to put people in seating for the playoff. Right. And then bracket is going to be 4 high. Oh, excuse me. So I didn't get to point number 3. They could be ranked 5th. So the 4 highest ranked conference champions will be 1 through 4. The 4 highest remaining seeds will host lower seeds. So I guess they could be 5th ranked here because again, they're saying conference champion 1 through 4 or by ranking. So doesn't matter if you're a conference champion and you're ranked 20th, right? But you're the highest ranked one, you could be in the top 4 seeds based upon this, right? Like, let's just say there's a scenario. Somebody real quick, pull up the standings for the top 20 teams at the end of last year, right?
At the end of last regular season.
At the end of the last regular season. See if we can find who were the top 20 teams there.
Okay, so week 14 AP poll.
Right, so I got it here. So week 15, the AP poll, the top 5 were Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati, Notre Dame.
Okay, so Alabama would be the conference champion, right? Michigan would be a conference champion.
Correct.
What was the next team on that list?
Georgia
is not going to be a conference champion, so they will be the highest they could be ranked here is 5th. Continue.
Okay.
Cincinnati would be a conference champion, so they would be ranked 3rd in the playoff. Go ahead.
Notre Dame 7th.
Notre Dame, the highest they could be ranked in this would be 6th likely because they're not
Georgia
a conference champion.
5. So who was the next conference champion on that poll?
That's the question I'm about to ask. Who is the next conference
Big 12? Did Baylor win the Big 12?
They did.
Yes.
Okay, so they're ranked 6th in this poll.
Okay, so they would be 4.
Right. They would be number 4 as this is presently constructed.
Which actually that actually would resolve the issues last year quite well, in my opinion.
Right.
Ohio State was 7th, so they were the Big Ten runner-up, technically, right?
Okay, so they would likely come in around 7th or 8th in this playoff expansion.
Yeah. Ole Miss was 8th.
Ole Miss still gets in this one.
Right. Do you think Ohio State jumps Notre Dame?
Well, here's the thing. They said that they're going to take 6 conference champions. So
right.
who is the next
that's
conference
what I'm going down
champion?
the list here.
So who's the Pac-12 champ?
Was it Utah? I think it was Utah, right?
It was Utah.
Where's Utah ranked?
They went to the Rose Bowl.
They are ranked 10th in the final AP
Okay,
poll.
so they would have to be somewhere in that top area as well. So they would leapfrog a couple of teams in this because they won their conference.
Correct. Let's see. What conference is Pittsburgh in?
ACC.
They finished 11-2. Who won the ACC last year?
I think Clemson still won it, didn't they?
Yeah, but
Am I making that up?
They finished 19th.
But they lost 3 games. Yeah,
they lost 3 games.
I think Clemson did win.
And then Pittsburgh was 11-2 last year. Interesting.
Where's Pittsburgh?
Was it? Wait. Was it Pittsburgh or was it
Wake Forest?
Wake Forest? Was it Wake Forest?
Was that ACC Championship game 2021?
I never know that stuff. They're
Lawrence says Pitt won.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that had to make
Pitt's
sense.
in.
So Pitt would get in. Where's Clemson ranked? This is interesting.
They're 19th on this list.
Clemson would not have made the playoff last year. Where's Wake Forest ranked?
Wake Forest was ranked 20th.
Wake Forest would not have made the playoff. They wouldn't have made it.
Which is fine because, I mean, Clemson was mid last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying it's fine. I'm just saying like scenarios in which you would have teams. Ohio State, where are they ranked on this?
7th.
Okay, so Ohio State would have made it. All right.
They would get in.
Let's continue here. All right, so champions, first 4 seed, highest remaining seeds will host lower seeds at sites to be determined. So this still gets you your bowl playoff sites likely. Scheduling, first round games will be played on either the 2nd or 3rd weekend in December, at least 12 days after the conference championship games.
Wow.
You know what?
Hold on, wait, that changes it. Wait, so
how does that change it?
The SEC championship is usually the first weekend in December.
Right.
So it'd have to be the 3rd.
At least 12 days. So roughly
it'd have to be the 3rd. Yeah, some bowl games start around the 3rd.
It said the
weekend.
2nd or 3rd. So yeah, it'd be the 3rd week.
Okay. Right. Yeah, the first week in December. So you no longer get that break, right? There's usually some kind of break, but if you're in the SEC championship game, it depends.
Assuming you're one of the top, assuming you're not one of the top ones,
right? But if you lose the SEC championship game and
now
you are in one of the you turn around and play in 2 weeks as a lower seeded person in this scenario.
So can we all collectively agree right now? The SEC runner-up is always getting into this thing.
Factual.
Every year.
Yeah.
It would be very difficult unless you had some weird scenario like an 8-4 SEC East team pulls an upset in the SEC championship. Well, no, even still,
though.
Yeah. Well, so no, let's say the SEC runner-up. So you're talking about by schedule. So let's take that same scenario. An 8-4 SEC East team loses the SEC championship game.
Okay,
it depends on where they came into that SEC championship game ranked. Do they take the next highest person from the West?
So yeah, I mean, assuming that the two team, we don't put one sorry team in the SEC championship game.
I mean, it's the East. Come on.
If it's Bama versus Georgia, though, what I'm saying is the team, like the teams like Auburn and Texas A&M that just barely miss the SEC championship game because their only losses to Bama.
They're in good shape.
You're in good shape to get into the back half of that playoff.
Weeks.
Yeah, and then you don't have to play any games. Yeah, then you don't have to play the games. Yeah.
It almost benefits you to be really good and not make the SEC championship game if you're in the West.
Right. Yeah. So now,
mind you, win it. You can win it and be all right because you get the bye.
So you get the bye week. Yeah. But if you sneak it on that back end, you may get a little bit of a break because you don't have to play the SEC championship game, but you still have to play more. You still have to make up the game that they're getting off. So, I just think, based on what we said, it's very likely there are always 3 SEC teams in this. Right? The runner-up in the West and whoever makes the SEC championship game is almost likely always in this. I'm telling you. And in rare years where you have somebody from the East who's decent in the second spot, maybe Kentucky from last year or something, I mean, they would have a decent argument to maybe creep in the back end of that playoff.
What were they ranked? What were they ranked?
Yeah, I was about to say, let's look at the numbers. Where
they were 20. They were 20. They finished 25, but it would depend on how the other teams do. I mean, you had Arkansas at 22.
Nah.
Yeah, it'd be unlikely. Let's continue here. Bowl relationship, quarterfinal and semifinal games will be played at the rotating bowl sites, subject to agreements being reached. National championship will continue to be played at neutral sites. Existing conference relationships with bowls will be considered for game replacements.
Game placements,
excuse me. So this is interesting. I think there's a lot to unpack with this. I'm going to jump back into a few comments here so we can get you guys in here that have been commenting. I saw a super chat jump in here. Let me make sure that I grabbed that one. Where was it? It
was Imani.
No, it was another one before that. Jeffrey here says the number 12 has to be a move in order to block the super conferences from forming. Makes sense, right? I don't know that blocks it though. Like, why?
No.
Why would that prevent super conferences from happening?
No, it doesn't really.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
now the super
construction.
Yeah, they're built to put as many teams as possible.
I think it's accurate. I think it's accurate. Is it accurate to say that it's not necessarily block super conferences, but it gets other teams in who are not part of super conferences? Because if you go to 8, what's the likelihood that you know what I mean?
You get in at all, right?
Yeah.
Let's contract what they just talked about, right? So let's just say that they're going to go in this with a 6-2 model instead of 6-6, right? Meaning 6 conference champions and 2 outliers. That does help make sure that somebody else gets in, but likely those other 2 are going to be in Indy, i.e. Notre Dame, and then somebody from one of those super conferences.
Right. I think 12 actually, I don't think it helps or hurts super conferences, because what you have from super conferences are teams who would have been jostling with these huge programs all season long. So if you respect USC, if you respect Ohio State, if you respect Michigan, and then you're going to have one team who's been playing all of them, gets close but not good enough, and at the end of the season they're going to say, man, but they really played Ohio State close, or they ended up beating Michigan, or they played USC tight. I don't know how they're not the 8th best team in the country. Let's put them in, whoever that team is. And the same thing in the SEC, which is why we got the benefit of the doubt in 2017. I think if we had a 12-team playoff in 2017, Auburn would have been in it. Yeah, we lost to LSU and we lost to Clemson, but Clemson, Bama, and Georgia were the 3 best teams in the country that year. So you say, man, I don't know. They played a tough schedule. We got to put them in. And so the group of 5 team that UCF probably is on the outside looking in if it's an 18, if it's an 18. In 2017.
That's facts.
Yeah, right. By proximity to the super conference teams, the teams in the super conferences have a much better chance of getting into an 8 or 12 team playoff, because everybody has a way to compare how good they are versus the teams that the country thinks are the best in the nation.
Yeah. All right, so let's get here. More super chats here. Imani Smoot jumps in and says, man, what happened? Okay, man, I don't care who we play. I embrace all the smoke. I'd love to beat Georgia, Alabama, or both 2 times in a season. I want all the smoke. Auburn will be undefeated and win the national championship this season. I am not upset at this enthusiasm right here.
We're going to send you some TWR shades, Imani, because the sun.
Appreciate that.
Bright. I love it.
Another super chat here. Appreciate it. TM Taco says, happy football, guys. Definitely glad to have football.
Great slate of games last night. I had fun watching football last night.
I did.
I think I was just happy that football was back. I don't really care if they would have been terrible games. Ben Bloodworth with the super chat here says, how satisfying is it that Dan Mullen has been reduced to making ranked lists on Twitter in an attempt to maintain relevance?
I got Justin Hokanson called him out pretty hard. I was like, yeah, and then he put Auburn like last. Like, come on, bro. Shut up.
Big game Mullen. He coming for that crown.
Watch out, Boomer.
Yeah, Boomer better watch out, man. Mullen is gonna come for his list crown.
Yeah, all right. Mullen saw this. Oh, Cal Austin, Cam. Oh, last.
We definitely appreciate everybody for the super chats that they've been given. We'll get into some more comments here in just a moment, but guys, let's kind of continue the conversation here. Thinking a little bit about where Auburn stands right now in all of this, right? Like, how do we feel about the trajectory of the program and the excitement that you feel like this puts, or do you feel like it lessens the excitement around the regular season? Because that's what I've been hearing or seeing a lot of people talk about, is how the regular season becomes less important with this playoff being a thing.
Based on the rules we're reading, I don't think it does, because now you're thinking about the different scenarios that happen based on what happens in the Iron Bowl, based on what happens in the conference. Like you're jockeying for your position to get into the playoff. So every game still becomes significant, and where you land, because you want to be that team that plays in the conference championship and get a bye? Or, hey, we didn't make the conference championship, but we got some ground to make up with playing some other big boys, and you know what I mean, working my way to the national championship. Like, those games make you think through on how significant the outcome is. So I don't think it necessarily does it based on the rules that they've listed. So I don't think it takes away from it at all. If anything, we know we're getting a lot more football than we've had in recent years. Significant football, as far as I'm concerned.
And that's a point, to your point, and that's, I know something that some people will make a point about, is that now we've got an additional game, because you had at the very least a semifinal and a final for who were mostly conference champions in the playoff, and now that's another game on these guys' bodies. And I agree with that. And I think that will probably have to be addressed in some way, or ideally it should be addressed, short of just outright paying these guys for playoff games, which I'm fine with. But also to that point, I think what has to be done now is you can't say that the regular season is less important, because you are jockeying for position every week, because people are still voting for the rankings, right? The rankings are still voted by that committee. So when they sit down and vote at the end of the year, whether Auburn's 10 or 8, they say the way they do it is they put up 2 teams that are to be considered. And they say, who do you think will win on a neutral field? And you pick which team. It's kind of like one of those tests where, like those survey tests, are you more this or more of that? Do you favor service or performance? You know, all that stuff. And at the end, that's how they get the rankings, right? So when you've, let's say, gone somewhere and gotten dusted in the regular season, and you have this one just terrible loss, sure, you maybe end up with as a one-loss team, and maybe you lose the conference championship. But in the people's minds who are voting, like, man, they look terrible on the road playing Oklahoma. I thought Auburn they were great everywhere, but they really folded that game. I don't know. Is that team going to show up? All of these performances, every performance you put out will determine how you're viewed at the end of the season. And because that determines where you fall, if you're going on the road or if you're hosting, every regular season game is still important.
Yeah, I think one way of looking at it would be because the common argument has been that because one loss could knock you out, it makes the regular season more exciting. I would actually argue that not getting knocked out by one loss actually keeps the regular season more relevant for more teams longer into the season. Right.
And it also increases the relevancy of the postseason, right? Like, who cares about bowl games right now?
Right.
Nobody cares about those games.
And,
now, listen,
I'm going to say this real quick, Mike. You don't want to be the team that's ranked 10th when these rankings are out and lose to a non-conference opponent, and now you're down in the 20th position going into the final weeks.
Yep.
So, like, when you say the games are less significant, I disagree, because if you drop a game that you shouldn't drop, and now you're hovering around your borderline towards the end of the season, that can mean the difference between you getting in or not even being considered.
Think about this for a second, too. Think about, and I'm going to let you finish your point, Mike. People talk about, losing to Penn State early, it's not as big a deal, right? Because we could possibly still win the conference and it doesn't matter, right? But if you don't win the conference and you lose to Penn State, it hurts your chances for the playoff even more. And that was kind of the point you were making, B. Will. But jump back in here, Mike, and finish your point if you got it.
Yeah, I mean, it changes a lot of things. I mean, because ultimately, if we're in the super conference today, do we even schedule a Penn State? Right? Like, I mean, it changes a lot of things. I just think ultimately the argument that it's going to weaken the regular season, I think the regular season gets stronger in other ways. So, like, who gives a damn about South Carolina, Clemson every year for the last 7 years? foregone conclusion.
Right.
Who's going to win that game, right? But now, if you're South Carolina, that game could mean a lot because it's a non-conference game that's auto on your schedule every year. And if you're South Carolina and it's the SEC and you're ranked somewhere in the fringe 15, beating Clemson might be making the playoff.
Or at least playing them extremely close to show something to the people. Well, so Clemson goes on and wins the ACC, and you're sitting here as a 3-loss South Carolina or 4-loss South Carolina. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Or maybe I think maybe at max a 3-loss South Carolina, but I just think if they're the ACC champions or the supposed ACC champions because they wouldn't have won it yet, right? If I'm a 3-loss South Carolina team, I didn't win the East, but I finished with 3 losses in the SEC, and I beat one of your top 6 in the playoff. That game means even more now. Think about how much more is on the line. Or if you're Clemson, you get to be the reason that little brother never makes it every year. He comes that much closer, and it's just, oh, you were so close, but you can't beat us, so you miss it. Right. I think that adds more excitement to this conversation. Personally, I just think the season ends on week 3 for so many teams.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to that point too, there's a lot of these out of conference rivalries, I think, that become more relevant, right? So you've got the Florida rivalry becomes more relevant again. Not that they're going to beat them anytime soon, but Georgia Tech becomes more relevant. The South Carolina Clemson one becomes more relevant. The Memphis and Kentucky becomes more relevant. The Louisville and Kentucky becomes more relevant. So you're just going to get Vandy and Tennessee both play in-state rivalry games too. Anyway, but still, the point is that you've got these rivalries, I think, that become more relevant again with that sort of thing. Going to jump back in here and grab some more of these super chats. We appreciate everybody who's chatting in. I see a bunch of comments coming in, guys. I'm not skipping your comments, and I apologize if it looks like I am, but I am prioritizing the super chats because, you know, it is what it is. You guys paid money. You might as well get a little shine here. Lawrence Robinson says he needs to call in. No, sir.
By the way,
we do not
Lawrence,
do call-in shows. But
the he was not for you, man. The he was for just the conversation, man. We hear what you're saying, though.
I love all the listen. You've got a right to your opinion, and I love you voicing your opinion, man. So I appreciate you chatting in. Exclusive TV jumps in. Do y'all think it shortens the off season? This is a good question. Do you think that there's a reason that they expand the off season a little bit more to get all of these games in? I mean, we're already getting a bunch of bowl games in. I'm assuming they're going to play back-to-back weeks. So if we're talking about starting the 3rd week in December, theoretically, right? So how many weeks do we normally get between then and when the season ends right now?
So what it would look like.
When was the national title game played this year?
It's usually like the second Monday. Monday in January or something like that.
Like 4 weeks time total.
But that's because they put the games on New Year's, right? So what this does is set up the first round of games about a week and a half, 2 weeks before New Year's.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm just asking how many weeks right now. So when is the last bowl game played? Because there are bowl games that get played after the national championship game, right? Right now.
In like a service game? I think the national championship's usually it.
I think that's usually. I think the national championship game is yeah.
So
I think
how with 12 teams, and we're talking about how many rounds of football are we talking about there?
You got the 5 through 12 round. You've got the 1 through 8 round. You've got the 1 through whoever's the final 4, and then the semifinals. So you've got 4
6 rounds.
Four
rounds. All right, so that's about the same amount of time. Maybe one extended week if they want to give a break somewhere. Yep. So you're talking about extending it by an additional week.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too bad.
It's not bad at all, considering people hate how long the offseason is right now for football anyway.
And to be honest with you, most of us are on neutral until the playoff games were getting played around New Year's. Like I wasn't, especially now with the opt-outs. And like that's the thing. The opt-outs were kind of ruining the bowl game experience.
Well, that was my point, is that the relevancy of the postseason becomes higher for more teams now.
Right.
You're going to see less and less of these high-profile players saying, nah, I don't want to play in this game, because the game means something now. You're going to a postseason game that actually has some meaning. Less and less of those players are going to decide that they don't want to play. And that factors into the NIL conversation as well, right? Like, there's going to be a conversation around whether or not that helps these players and their validity towards building their brands later on in the thing. So let me jump back in here. More super chats coming in. Lawrence jumps back in and says, me and Josh Pate pulling up with Elijah Craig. You guys are welcome to pull up. I don't know which of the 4 spots you're going to pull up to, but
we'll love to talk to Pate about this.
Oh yeah, Josh Pate definitely has some thoughts on this for sure. We'll see if we can get a Josh Pate special convo where we have a conversation with him. I'd love to do some sort of panel. I did a panel during the off season talking about NIL and the transfer portal with a lot of the writers from around in the different conferences. Maybe we'll try to do something like that around playoff expansion and just kind of hear what some of the other conferences. I'm particularly interested in hearing what those Big 12 and Pac-12 and ACC writers have to say about how this factors into what they're doing. But yeah, let's jump back in here. A lot of chats coming in. And I don't even know where to start with this. I'll just start up here. From a while back, Austin Holland says needs no more than 8. 12 is too much and lessening the reverence and meaning of the regular season. We are
saying relevance. Yeah.
I mean, revering it. That's fine.
I don't disagree that 8 would have been cool. I think 12 gives more people a little bit of a shot or a little bit of revenue, because that's another thing. Is if you're a borderline team who's always on the cusp and always on the fringe. Well, listen, now the Pac-12 may not have the heavy hitters, but if you have a consistent enough team like a Utah, right, with a coach who's got it going, you're not going to be world beaters, but you're going to be competitive. You know what, you get in at 10, and now the conference gets to share a little bread, and maybe that's the boost y'all need, because obviously y'all TV deals are trash out there in the Pac-12, so you need a little playoff money to help get things going. So what you can do is make the playoff. If you're not going to be 1 through 8, get in at 9, 10, 11, and 12, and start to get something going. Dan Lanning out there at Oregon, they're doing good recruiting. You've got an opportunity to get in the door and build yourself up.
So this does, I mean, we haven't talked about this and how it helps in recruiting for those fringe teams, right? You now have a better opportunity to give a real reason to a recruit that your games in this conference matter that much more, right? So if you are, you know, an Auburn, a Texas A&M, a team that has always just kind of been right there at the edge of being a Kentucky, right now, you've got a shot to say, we don't just have a chance to go out here and win a conference championship if we play really well. We can play really well throughout the season and have a potential to go out here and win a national championship if we handle business during the regular season, even if we don't make the conference championship, right? So you do have that opportunity. John Brandon jumps in here with the super chat. Appreciate that very much. Won't they have to shorten the regular season by 1 game? So, I don't know the answer to this, but go ahead, B.
Of course, I think you shouldn't have to play a 12-game regular season if you're one of the teams that has to play in the conference championship game. Is 13. If you end up 5 through 12 after that conference championship game, you play that round. That's 14. If you make it to the final 8, you play that round, that's 15. If you final 4 would be 16, and the championship game would be 17, and that is a hell of a run. That's a lot.
That's an NFL.
I mean, that's an NFL schedule.
That's an NFL schedule.
When it's an NFL regular schedule,
right? Regular season schedule. So I think the reason you can't shorten the regular season is because it's only going to be 12 teams. You're going to shorten 132 teams schedule by 1 game, assuming that 12 of them make it. So what happens to the games that those universities want to sell those 12 games? Whoever's home game that is, they want that. They want that beer money. They want that concession money. The FCS, or group of 5 schools who get that paycheck from that 12th game, they want that money as well. So you can't mess with that economy. And I think that there is some disincentive there to continue to play every game. I think you may find a situation where teams might be doing what NFL teams do and kind of jockey at the end of the regular season for just the right position. Now that's tough because it's mathematic in the NFL. You know exactly
it's not in your hands.
Yeah. Right. It's not in your hands.
A game you're not supposed to. Right. Or I mean, so let's just play this scenario out. And I see some people in the comments talking about the importance of the Iron Bowl, right? Let's say, offhand scenario, both teams go into the Iron Bowl right on the edge, like one is undefeated, one has 1 loss going into the Iron Bowl, right? You know that if you're the 1 loss team, the shot that you have to get in is winning the Iron Bowl and then going on to win the conference championship. More than likely, you lose the Iron Bowl, you lessen your chances of going in and getting into the playoff at that point in time. If you're the undefeated team, are you disincentivized to win the Iron Bowl, even if it's a rivalry game?
Perhaps, but I don't think.
Or are you disincentivized if you're an undefeated team playing a person who's not undefeated in the conference championship game to play your hardest in the conference championship game?
Or just rest a dude.
Right. I'm saying, do you care as much?
Yeah. Rest. If you got somebody who's dealing with a sprain, but he's good enough to go, rest him. You know what? We get in here no matter what. I'm going to get my guys back. I've been recruiting well enough, developing well enough. Hey, whoever's next up, you get in here. You're going to get some experience right now because we might need you, but this other guy's going to rest. So he
I guess the difference between getting a bye and not getting a bye, like, you mean in still means you play first week and you have a tougher, if you're out of the top 6, losing that game means you're out of the top 6. Then you're not going to rest anybody, right? I think that's the point is that to get that bye week, you have to win your championship game, which disincentivizes people from resting people in the in the championship game. Yeah. So I don't think that would factor in because I think they will put safeguards in for that.
Awesome. All right. Auburn Girl jumps in here with just a super chat. I didn't see anything attached to it. So if you had something else you wanted to say, we missed that, but appreciate you jumping in with that super chat. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Once again, we are talking playoff expansion. A lot of comments jumping in here, and we want to make sure that we get to as many of them as possible. You know, you guys want to hear our thoughts, but I know you guys want to get your thoughts out. So I'm going to try to get to more of these as we see them come in. Drew Kahn earlier says 16 seed beats a 1 seed. So it's really amazing that we will have madness on the gridiron as well. I mean, this is interesting, right? Like, it's highly unlikely, right? Because
highly unlikely.
The difference in because a basketball game, you can have one ethereal talent and you can go out there and upset a team, or, you know, you can play your guts out for, you know, the 45 minutes of a basketball game and get, you know, some breaks here. It's so unlikely that a low seeded team beats a team. I mean, number one, if you're a 16 playing a 1, that means that you have already played a game in the playoff, right? So you had to beat somebody else before you even got to that 1 seed. There's not a off the bat 16 versus 1 game that's going to happen, right? So you would have had to play somebody else already. So you're more tired. You're facing a rested 1 seed that likely is the more talented team. Right. That's a hard thing
with the better coaches as well too. I think coaching plays more of a, like, if you're on a basketball court, you can go out there and just shoot out of your mind.
Right. That's right. Like there's not a scenario in which somebody can just have an out of their mind game unless it's a quarterback that is just
running shit that the coach didn't call. Just calling his own audibles.
Right. Like they're gonna have to Johnny Manziel their way through that entire game.
Yeah. Speaking of which.
And that's not even a championship. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's how do you reproduce that? You got to do that again the next week against likely the number 3 team in the country.
Right.
Yeah. And they're rested.
One thing that I thought was interesting about this conversation and really the idea that when you let teams in on the back end, they don't stand a chance. And I've always disagreed with that. And the reason is because I want you to think about all the teams who have won championships since the playoff has started. Was there any doubt that that was the best team in the nation? At any point for any of the championships? 2021, who just won? I forgot. Is it Georgia? I'm comfortable saying Georgia was the best team in the country. Now, if you tell me Alabama wants to play them and they're completely healthy, maybe it's different, maybe. But I'm comfortable saying Georgia was the best team. And no, there wasn't any team 5 through 12 who would have beaten that Georgia team. 2020, that Alabama team versus how everybody else looked in 2020, no, they were the best. The LSU team 2019, no, that was their year. Like, I don't think there's everybody saying, oh, well, do you just giving the good team an opportunity to trip up? Who are these teams losing to? We saw these teams play. You telling me somebody out there and outguns Joe Burrow and them 2019?
Nobody was beating them.
It's not happening. Yeah. The Clemson team in 2018 with that defense, they
smoked.
Everybody who came up against them would have got smoked. On the other end, what I have seen are teams that start rough, start the wrong quarterback early in the season, and end up at a place where they are as good as everybody thought they were going to be. I'll give you a good example. I think James Franklin is very overrated. He is overrated because he had one very good team, and it was the year that they beat Ohio State. And they got left out of the college football playoff. Ohio State got the nod to go on, and they got smoked by Clemson 30-0. That was his year. Now, because he just was in a conference with somebody who was a higher favorite than him, Ohio State's program, he didn't get in. An expanded playoff says, you know what? There's no way y'all let me out of this. Or what happens is they get their proper seeding in the top 4, and Ohio State gets to get in at 6 or 7 or whatever it is.
Yeah. That way, you don't have to make a bad subjective argument, by the way, between two teams when one team clearly beat the brakes off the other.
Right.
I just don't.
It's still going to happen it's not going to happen as high in the rankings, but it will happen at the back end of this ranking, right? The 10,
for sure.
10, 11, 12 teams are still going to be arguing that the 13, 14, 15 teams were better teams. Or the 13, 14, 15 teams are going to complain that they were better than the 10, 11, 12 teams that you guys let in.
But I don't know. You could expand to 30, man, and you're always going to have that argument.
Yeah, 100%, which is why I don't care what the number is, really. It's really about whether the system works to get the best teams in there. And then automatic quals with the conference championships, people are going to complain that some 9-3 Pac-12 team got in automatically, and they're going to go in there and get the brakes beat off of them by somebody, right? It's going to happen. Every year you're going to have this debate that someone didn't belong. I was the better team. If I had gotten in, we would have won. And it's just going to be a thing that's going to continue to happen. Yeah. We don't have the normal thing for this, but we have come into an important super chat moment here, and that is our guy Jazzy Joe with the Jazzy Challenge, location challenge. Where am I for 100? Y'all better get this. I'm assuming he's going to be in Alabama because the game is tomorrow.
Yeah, he was Alabama. He said I saw him get off on the exit. It said Auburn Technology Park. He's in Alabama. He's in Auburn, Alabama. Damn it,
Alabama.
Auburn, Alabama.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think everybody's going to go with Alabama. I'll say Georgia just in case he is spending the night in Columbus or something like that, just so we have both of those covered. But I think that's the worst that we're going to get is Georgia as a potential as the other one there. So we got Alabama and Georgia as our guesses. Jazzy, go ahead and give us our money, my man. Appreciate you as always for jumping in here, man. All right, so we got a lot of chat still coming in here. We appreciate everybody for doing that. Let's see here. Stuart Donald earlier said, give me those all SEC Final Fours, y'all. You think the Big Ten hates us now? Listen, I don't think the Big Ten is who hates us that much. I think it's the Pac and the ACC and the Big 12 that hates everybody in the SEC and the Big Ten. I think that's where the hatred actually resides.
Yeah, most of the hate comes from the ACC, right? Like they have some great basketball schools, but in football, they have just not been able, outside of Clemson.
And I mean, but whose fault is that? Like, that's not like you guys. The ACC being bad is not the Big Ten or the SEC's fault,
right? But their conference leadership screwed themselves, right? And that's why when everybody makes fun of the togetherness of like SEC schools when it comes to like SEC versus, I just laugh. I'm just like, but you guys aren't getting it. This is why we're beating you, right? You don't get it. Like they figured out that if more teams are equal, the whole can be greater. So I'm not saying we invented equal revenue sharing, but that was the thing that almost ended the Big 12. The Longhorns taking a majority, a lion's share of the revenue. And then A&M came and said, listen, we're going to pay $60-something million to leave, but in year one in the SEC, we're going to make up all that money, so it just doesn't matter, and you can just stay here and weaken the rest of the conference. Meanwhile, they immediately had a Heisman winner and went on some crazy run. You know what I mean? Like, I know it hasn't resulted in any SEC championships for them, but recruiting improved. They're constantly in the conversation.
Yeah, and this expansion allows them to even. So, honestly, I'm going to say this, and B. Will is not here to be upset about it. The big winner in this is Texas A&M.
100%.
Because now Jimbo doesn't have to win the SEC West.
To make a playoff,
and he can still make a playoff and have an opportunity to get. The recruiting pitch that they've been giving these guys and all this money is going to literally pay off now.
Well, think about it this way, right? Look how iffy their team is this year, but they are starting ranked 6th and 7th respectively in the preseason polls.
Yeah.
So, again, a 2-loss season gets them into a 12-team playoff when you start that high to begin with and you're already in the SEC West.
Yeah. So here's a question I have that's on this subject. do we think preseason polls should be something that we do away with? I don't know how it matters that you do away with it, because at some point in time, that first poll is still going to be. But do you think we should play a couple of weeks into the season? I know they say the actual playoff poll doesn't start, but that playoff poll does have something to do.
It'll never go
how
away.
they do it is based upon
did
you beat a ranked team, blah blah blah.
It'll never go away because the NCAA has no control over it. The AP is going to do that regardless because it creates too many talking points, and like it just will never go away. I think it should go away, but it will never go away.
Right.
Ever.
Right. And I think their way of trying to address that a few years ago was coming out with that college football playoff poll later on in the season. That was their way to try to give.
Yeah, but they always do the head up matchups with ranked teams, right? So like that, you say it doesn't matter, but then it matters because of who you're playing and that where they ranked at the time, and are they like that's it? The ranking still comes into play. So even though it's no poll matters until the college football playoff.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that.
No, I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying that was the argument they were trying to make, is that, well, it doesn't really matter because that's not the playoff poll, but it does.
Yeah, if you're telling me you're telling me those people aren't looking at that stuff at all, okay, maybe, right? But if it's out there, they're going to be inherent biases that people are drawing from those polls, whether they're talking about it or not. Like, I mean, like I said, it should go away, but it's not ever going to, because the NCAA is not in control of it, right? Like you're not going to stop Sports Illustrated or ESPN or any of these other independent outlets.
What is the NCAA actually in control of? Like, let's start there. Other than penalizing people for random stuff, they have no control over anything. Jazzy Joe jumps back in here and says he's actually in Eufaula, dropping the trailer off, but let's go.
All right.
Appreciate it, Jazzy Joe, man. I will be down in Auburn tomorrow covering the game, so maybe I'll try to walk around and hit some tailgates up or something like that. Hopefully I'll see some of you guys down there. Got a lot of chat still rolling in here. We appreciate all of you. Fortunate Degree says, I'm with Josh Pate on this one. It makes Auburn's path to the national championship much harder. We have to go through our rough schedule, then face even more top teams, not to mention the SEC championship game. I don't know that I agree that it's harder.
Listen, I think what it does is it makes other people's schedule within the SEC harder with conference expansion, because this is not happening in a vacuum, right? And so I just think it's the case for, I mean, Georgia had to face Bama twice. Bama had to face Georgia twice last year. So I understand our strength of schedule is a little bit stronger than theirs. But to B's point earlier, if Auburn raises its level of play and become the team that teams fear, it was amazing. There was a point back in the early 2000s, Alabama had a tough path in the SEC West. But they became an elite team, an elite program, and now their schedule all of a sudden looks easy. If Auburn raises its level, and I agree, yeah, it's still going to be tough, but it's no tougher than what the top teams in the conference already has to deal with.
Yeah, I don't agree with the whole it's going to make it tougher, dude. It's hard already. If you play in the West, it's hard. What this does is this gives you a back channel way of not getting eliminated in week 3.
So I mean, because here's the thing though, like it definitely is tough. It's going to be tough one way or the other. There's no way around it being a tough road. The only teams that benefit from this really, again, are the teams that would be fringe teams, and then that group of 5 team actually they get to play out the conversations, right? So like your UCFs don't have to claim a national championship; they can go out and actually earn it on the field now, right? Like they don't have to come out here and pretend like they won and throw parades and blah blah blah. Go play a team, and let's see. Since you think you can compete with everybody else, let's see.
Yeah, I just think the point is that winning a championship period is tough no matter what route you take there. So if you win the SEC, you played a tough schedule. If you didn't win the SEC and you made the playoff and you're going to win it, it's supposed to play. It's supposed to be tough, man. Like I don't think that there's an easy route from the SEC to the national championship game period. Now, if you're Clemson, there was an easy route. You probably hate this. Right.
Yeah, because now it's not just win a couple of games. You got to win like 4 or 5 games against really quality teams.
Yeah, there are more chances for you to trip up when you can't just steamroll an easy conference and then land yourself in the national title game one game later. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's
which is why the BCS always sucked. Right. Because you could be dominating the crap out of a bunch of no-name schools. And then because you looked really great on the field in your conference, Yes, I'm looking at you, Oklahoma. And then you make it to the BCS national championship game and somebody beats the crap out of you. But really, all you had to do was show up for one game that year.
And for that reason alone, that's why I hate, like, now to your point, that's why those rankings should die. Like that, to me, that's how Oklahoma got there, because they started the season.
Yeah, they just started. Yeah, right. And we steamrolled. I mean, they changed the whole formula after that season, right? But I think 2003 Kansas State versus Oklahoma was probably, I mean, that was one of the greatest tragedies, right?
Right.
Kansas State demolished Oklahoma 35-7 in the Big 12 championship game, and then they still made the national championship game after getting steamrolled in their conference championship game because of perception. So this is, there's always going to be some team that doesn't deserve to be in there that gets in there if you're outside of the Big or the SEC. I'm telling you, they're going to be undeserving teams outside of those conferences.
Even in college basketball, you have teams on the bubble who get upset. A&M should have gotten into the tournament.
Yeah, they got screwed last year.
You know what I mean? So even with the legitimacy of a college basketball tournament, you're still going to have some teams that's going to feel slighted. There's no way around it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard. It's hard. It's supposed to be hard.
All right. Again, I am prioritizing super chats and member comments, so I apologize to those of you who feel like I'm skipping over your comment. I promise I'm not. There are literally hundreds of comments coming in here, but I'm trying to get to as many of them as I see here. Kirk Brasher says, hey, what's up, guys? I'm not surprised that the college football playoff went to 12 teams, but I'm surprised it happened so quick. I think it will be great. Excited for the 2024 season. What do y'all think? I think we've kind of addressed this a little bit as we've been talking. But yeah, I am shocked that they went straight from 4 to 12. I did think we were going to have a stop at 8 for a couple of years and see how that went. But not upset about any of this. I just think that, it's a change in college football, and people who are hating to see a lot of the changes around the country are getting upset. And everybody who is embracing the change is going to go out here and play some really great football. And I think football will still be amazing. So there's that. Lawrence Robinson has been busy in the chat. Where will the group of 5 get the schedule strength going forward? What Power 5 school is going to schedule a group of 5 school? This is a good question. Guys, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean,
they just got to win their conference, though.
Yeah, this is where I'm at, right? Like, I just think this whole thing after super conferences form is going to de-incentivize teams from playing risky games outside of their conference, right? Which makes those group of 5 schools less likely to get on a schedule with, unless they're literally paying money to take the, you know what I mean? Like, to get the matchup. I just don't know how it works. I think more teams are going to get shut out.
Do you think, though, let's just say it's a UCF. We're going to pick on them for a minute. Do you think UCF schedules a Missouri, right? Like, they're not the top guys in the conference, but Missouri, by nobody's account, is the top team in the SEC. Do you think some of the smaller Power 5 schools or the lesser end Power 5 schools then schedule, because they need a resume builder as well, right?
Right. Well, not Missouri. You're already in the SEC. You don't need a resume builder. You're in the SEC.
I'm saying, but if you're going to get mud stomped by everybody else in the SEC East, it'd be nice for you to have some sort of other school that you could go out there and put a W.
Maybe
on.
not UCF.
It's not going to matter.
Maybe not UCF.
If you're mud stomped by the conference, it just doesn't matter, right? Like I just think
I'm just asking, do you think that they would take that game and not worry about it, because it doesn't really matter. It's like, all right, yeah, I'll give you a shot.
Yeah, I don't think so. If I'm Missouri, I'm not taking that game. If I'm in the SEC West and I'm playing a 9-game conference schedule, I'm definitely not. I'm not going out of my way.
If we go to 9,
yeah, but that's where it's going with conference expansion. I think we're going to a 9-game schedule with the Big Ten already at 9. Like, I doubt that those games get scheduled. It's going to make it really, really hard on these other schools. This is why I think Notre Dame runs for a conference. I think now, if you're Notre Dame, all the arrogance you had about staying independent maybe goes away a little bit, because the way the rules are going to be set up, to your point, if they don't put a Notre Dame exception in it, like, the highest they're going to be as a seed is going to be like 5 or, you know what I mean?
Does that ruin the legitimacy of the playoff if they make a Notre Dame exception?
I think any Notre Dame exception is bull. Like, I think Andy.
The only reason an exception should exist for Notre Dame, or would exist, is so that they could get into the top 4, because they're not in the conference, but they would still make the playoff. right? So like it's only going to keep Notre Dame from getting a bye.
Right, correct.
If they don't give some sort of exception. So if Notre Dame, but see here's where it gets tricky, and this is I think the point that Mike is making is that who schedules Notre Dame? Who puts Notre Dame on their schedule that has a legitimate shot of getting to the playoff without having to play Notre Dame?
Yeah, it's not helping me. It only helps Notre Dame.
Right.
I mean, probably a Stanford.
Yeah, if I'm in the Big Ten
or the SEC, there's literally no reason to schedule
Notre Dame.
Yeah, so maybe a Pac-12 team does it, maybe a Big 12 team does it, maybe an ACC team does it to bolster their record, but it's got to be. But again, if you're Clemson, why schedule Notre Dame? I need to cakewalk through my season, win my conference. If you're Oregon, Utah, why schedule Notre Dame? If you're Oklahoma, well, Oklahoma's going to be in the SEC. I don't who plays in the Big 12 still. Like what?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's tough. Like those conferences now, their terrible leadership is led them down this path, right? Where again, you're not sweating this if you're in the SEC or the Big 10 right now. You know, if you're the Big 10, you win, you poach the Pac-10s to their flagship schools. Right. Everybody else is on the outside looking in, and they're just thinking, hey, when this rolls around, we're already good. So all the rest can do is try to jump into one of these super conferences or form their own super conference and hope that it's viewed the same as these others. Like, I mean, I know that UCF is joining the Big 12 and there's some schools running for the Big 12. I just don't think without Texas and Oklahoma, the view of that conference is going to be the same. It's going to be, I mean, the
view isn't going to be the same. It doesn't matter though, right? They still have a conference championship.
It's the Big East, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but I'm saying they're still going to have a conference champion and they're still going to have an opportunity to get into the playoff as these rules are constructed, right? I think the path for, and see, this is what's going to be interesting is it better to be in the top of the group of 5 or be in the bottom of like a UCF, for instance, right? They were dominating their conference, Boise, right? Dominating their conference every single season. It benefits them nothing to go to the Pac-12 now. Like, why go there? I can stay in my weak conference and dominate it and have a better chance of getting to the playoff than if I go out here and kind of play well in this other conference.
Brian Harson's like, damn it, I should have just waited a couple more years. Could have been in this damn playoff with my 3-star athletes.
And getting mud stomped when they got into the playoff.
I mean, hey, listen, the Statue of Liberty. But
they might have won one game, right?
Yeah. So I like I said, there's a lot to be said here once they iron out the rules. Because I think they're going to have to whatever rules they came up with today are going to have to be re-looked at once conference realignment is finished.
Yeah,
right. Because to your point,
the conferences are going to have to figure this out for sure. Yeah, like the SEC has to figure out what's the best path for us to get the most people in.
Yeah, I'm just happy we have Greg Sankey and everybody else has who they have.
The SEC is already. They've already made their moves in anticipation of this. Now the other people who've been behind the 8 ball are scrambling to get in position.
Yeah. I mean, like literally, as Mike was saying, if you're the Pac-12 and you're the ACC and you tried to block this last year, you have to feel every member institution in those 2 conferences should be in an uproar right now with their conference leadership.
I'm telling you, like the business that is college football, right? Like it's more than just about the games that are being played on the field. There are business people trying to project, right, the success of the whole. And, between Greg Sankey and Mike Slive, we've been very fortunate to have 2 visionaries in that regard. Like, the SEC, they spearheaded the conference championship game back in the early 90s, right? Like they had the vision to say, hey, this is going to be good long term. It created revenue, it created jobs, it created rivalries, and they're staying on the forefront of that change rather than letting the change happen to them. And that's the mistake I think that the ACC and the PAC made, was they let the change happen to them. And when you let it happen to you, you don't always get a say in it. Yeah. Right. So this is where they're at right now. They asked for this, they earned this. And and Texas and Oklahoma had the foresight to say, hey, if this is happening, instead of trying to affect change under ineffective leadership, let's just go where they have good leadership.
Well, I think that's the thing that's horrible about this is the Big 12 wasn't the conference that was protesting this, and they got screwed probably because they lost their 2 biggest cash cows, and they didn't even get the Big 12 got screwed by the Pac-12 and the ACC. The Big 12 was like, yeah, we're cool with this. And Pac-12 and ACC were the ones that were being protestive about it. And
I would say this. Did you guys see the article where they were talking about how I guess there's some kind of early TV negotiation that's going on with the Big 12 that might facilitate Oklahoma and Texas leaving by 2024 and coming to the SEC. So jumping a year early, essentially. So
I mean, this would be right on time for the playoff expansion.
Yeah. It could be they could be in the SEC by the 2024 season. So they've renegotiating the TV contract somehow has opened the door for this. So if they sign a new contract, it could somehow release Texas and Oklahoma from whatever they're about to sign, depending on when it goes into effect, because they will not be signing up for it at all.
Right.
This is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. But like I said, conference leadership is, nobody cares really who their conference commissioner is until shit like this happens. And, you're complaining about, all the crying about the SEC guys is going to be unbearable. It's gonna be on another level for the next couple of years, man. People are gonna be like, "Oh, Bama this, Bama that." I'm like, all this stuff is doing really is widening the gaps between the haves and the have-nots. The only thing that's happened really in conference in college football to maybe even that a little bit has been the transfer portal. That's it. NIL, all this stuff, all that did was make the rich richer and the poor poor. Right. And the guys in the middle, they trended toward poor. But, if you were Auburn and if you were one of these schools that's just got endless money and lots of tradition, NIL, you're going to figure that stuff out eventually.
Yeah.
Right. If you're one of these schools who doesn't have that, Kiffin complained about it. Right. He just felt like it was going to put them behind the 8 ball because they don't have that money that exists in their alumni base like some of these other schools have. And you also don't have a long-standing recent winning tradition that generates the type of excitement that encourages those people to donate money to your program. So now you're having to ask for dollars, but the product that you put on the field is even more important now in terms of generating those dollars. And all this conference realignment and playoff stuff is going to be a big part of it. So if you were on the fence and you can't get your team, if you're a fringe team and you still can't get your team into a 12-team playoff, it's going to suck. It's going to suck, but mark my words, it just got that much easier. Don't complain. Now, if there was ever a dream of not seeing Bama in the playoff, it just went away. Until
somebody beats them in the
until Saban retires. Until Saban retires, right? A mediocre Bama team has earned the benefit of the doubt. I could see a 9-3 Bama team making the playoff easily in the back half. Right. On name alone. So, if you didn't like Bama, this doesn't help you. And I think this is what Josh Pate was trying to say. He's trying to say this doesn't solve the issue of the big guys eating and the little guys not eating. It may give a couple of plates to some of the little guys at the table, but ultimately you're not going to get more of those little guys into the conversation. You're going to sneak a couple in on the back end, and then they're going to get crushed by the big dogs. Yeah. So it is what it is.
Lawrence Robinson jumps in with another super chat. If an independent team is ranked in the top 10, clause would allow them to get in. I could see that clause pissing off Mike G.
I'm not necessarily against this, right? What I'm saying is if you can be an independent and then get a first round bye,
right?
Yeah. That would drive me crazy. That's the clause I don't want. That's the Notre Dame clause I don't want to see. If you're not going to join a conference, then you're automatically 7th or back. That's it. You're not going to play a conference championship game. If you're not going to do what everybody else has to do to make it, you don't get to make up your own rules and then say we did enough. No, you play by the damn rules that everybody else is playing by.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about that.
Okay.
Super chat again here from John Brandon. A little off topic, but can y'all discuss the new defensive player in a passing stance ridiculousness?
The NCAA can't get anything right, dude. You put a clarification out that just causes up. The guy who posted that tweet, after he read the responses, he was like, "Damn it, guys, we had 5 meetings about this and we still didn't get it right." I don't know how you post that and you didn't look at that draft and say, there are going to be a lot of questions about this. Maybe we should have some kind of official clarification. I don't know, right? They essentially just said that a quarterback throwing the ball is defenseless. Yeah, at any point, that's what the rules is, right?
They're just trying to implement more rules to protect quarterbacks from getting late hits, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get it. Listen, if quarterback might be the best job in all the sports here in a second, you can't get hit. You can't get hit, right? Like you get all the time in the world. The defensive back might be the worst job in all the sports here with these rules. So we'll see.
Seriously.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody for jumping in here and chatting with us about this. A lot more conversation definitely will be had about this over the next 2 years, really, as we approach this and how we see conference realignment impacting all of these things. We appreciate everybody who has given their input on this. Again, there will be plenty more to talk about with this. Mike G, you want to tell everybody why they need to be a member of the War Report, though?
Hey, listen, the time is coming. The time is here. Tomorrow is game time, baby. And if you're not a member, you're going to miss out on a lot of great conversation that happens during the game. We will be with you guys pregame, halftime, and postgame, member only in the chat. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back, member only in the chat. So if you cannot chat, please do not complain. You may be able to watch, but we're going to limit comments on game day to family only. So become a member. And if you're watching on desktop, you can actually gift memberships for people. So there is a gift membership button. I don't know if we have the graphic in here, right? But like there's a gift membership button where you guys can essentially bless somebody else with a 1-month membership to the War Report. Now, what does that mean? That means those chat privileges. It means film reviews. It means all of the premium content that we post that even if you're not a member, you can see what that content is. You just can't watch it. So help somebody else. You guys have been doing a great job. I think we've had over 100 gifted memberships since we announced that this is
like half
possible.
Of those came from Thomas Sanders. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So people are definitely doing this. Spread the love, spread the gift of the War Report to your fellow War Report subscribers and help everybody get access to that content. Now, it's only 1 month. So once it expires, that's it. Right. And what I hope happens is that, you know, those people who get those gifted memberships sign up on their own and continue to support the work that we're doing here at the War Report. So become a patron, help us continue to grow our channel and grow our company and get our message out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, we appreciate everybody who's taken some time today on this impromptu live to talk a little bit about the expansion of the college football playoff. We will be right back at you all tomorrow with the pregame live 30 minutes prior to kickoff. So that's going to be 5:30 Central, if I'm not wrong, and 6:30 Eastern. Tomorrow we will be back live for you with our pregame. Everybody's welcome to come into the pregame and talk with us on the pregame. Halftime and postgame, though, got to be a member to get in on that. But that's it, man. We're about to get out of here. We appreciate y'all once again. As always, War Eagle.